Good evening, everyone, and thank you for watching NBC6 Voices on our Facebook and YouTube pages. I'm Jawan Strader. Well, did you know that the United States is ranked as one of the worst countries globally for human trafficking, with an estimated 199,000 incidents every year? And Florida is ranked as one of the states with the highest instances of child trafficking in the country. Here with me today is human trafficking survivor, Aytia Tarpley. Welcome to the show, Aytia.
Thank you for having me.
You got it. I'm looking forward to this conversation. And you are a survivor. Can you tell us a little bit about your story?
I fell victim to human trafficking because I was raised in foster care. So I went into care at the age of 2. And from growing up since a little girl, I always had this fairy tale that this knight in shining armor was going to help deliver me from some of the abuse that I was experiencing. And I remember going into a group home with a young lady. She introduced me to a website called Moco Space. And she told me that I would be able to have a boyfriend to love me and care for me and buy me great things. And I went on the site just to find myself stuck into a situation of human trafficking.
Oh my goodness. And let's talk about that, and your experience and how you got out of everything, how you were able to overcome what you went through. And you're talking right now, it's I mean, the fact that you're able to talk about it like you are, because I can't imagine what you may have gone through.
Getting through human trafficking was probably one of the most biggest hurdles I have ever had to climb. Some people think it's the child abuse or foster care in general and not having any stability, but it really was the human trafficking that kind of broke the camel's back. And once I went through human trafficking, I decided to tell myself that I was either going to stay in this pit where I was no longer physically, but I was mentally, or I was going to get myself out and advocate on the behalf of others who may be currently in this situation or is immediately out of the situation and have not started the healing process yet. And when I decided to do that, I give all glory and thanks to God. I went down this journey of healing. It was an emotional roller coaster. It wasn't very easy at all, and I wanted to shy away from it. But when I did, I seen the pain, I seen the purpose in my pain, and I said, well, if it feels this good to be liberated after
Hmm.
something so horrible and not allowing anybody to steal my power from me, then I have to do it for somebody else.
Amen. Very well said, Aytia. And you now work as a social worker for young girls, and you
Yes.
also started it's Christian Resilience, a faith-based survivor-led nonprofit organization.
Yes, sir. Currently, right now, I do work as a social worker in Miami, Florida. I work with girls who have been recently out of human trafficking and who have been rescued by, sources in our community, the FBI and the state attorney's office, and I help them walk through the healing process and what it looks like to process all of the grieving processes of walking out of human trafficking. And I think the first step is not blaming yourself, because a lot of us feel like, oh, I should have been smarter than that. I knew not to go out with strangers or stranger danger. So to walk them through that, and then also with my own nonprofit, is to help young girls with high ACE scores to learn how to go over the trials and tribulations and find out where the seed is, because when they find out where the seed is, then they can take it up by the root and they can build their own traditions, their own morals, their own values, and their own cycles. And I advise healthy ones and positive ones where we don't beat up on ourselves.
Amen, Aytia. And what do you want folks out there to know about human trafficking who may have a different understanding of what human trafficking really is? What do you want folks to take away from what it is in this discussion here tonight?
What I want folks to take away from this discussion is that human trafficking does not discriminate. We oftentimes look in our community for these white vans with big locks on them, but that's not necessarily how human traffic happens in our community. Human trafficking looks like your aunt, your nephew, your sister, your brother, your cousin. If you have any vulnerabilities that are open to the public, people prey on that. And anyone can fall victim to human trafficking. So please stop looking for the white vans and looking for the young girls who are walking and that may be dirty. It's so much bigger than that. And when we open our eyes to how broad the spectrum is of human trafficking, then we can really fight it in our community.
And that brings me to my last question to you. What do you believe could be some of the solutions out there in order to put an end to human trafficking?
To put it into human trafficking, I believe with my whole heart to allow people to start the healing process of the things that they've been through in their childhood, the things that they have been through also in their adulthood, and to go over what are all the things that are hurting them and holding them back. And not only would it help to solve human trafficking, but it would help people move forward as their better selves in a positive way so that we can be able to help others in our community. But as long as there's vulnerability there and we choose not to face the things that look at us in the mirror in the morning, then we are victims to human trafficking.
Amen. Aytia, thank you so much for joining us this evening and sharing your story. Um, you're very well spoken, and believe me, I believe that a lot of people are hearing you tonight and what you have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
You got it. You got it. And moving on now, like we mentioned earlier, Florida ranks third in the nation for human trafficking, according to World Population Review. And KidSafe Foundation works to make children harder targets for sex abuse, exploitation, and human trafficking. Here with us tonight is Cherie Benjoseph, Chief Program Officer and co-founder of KidSafe Foundation. Welcome to the show this evening.
Thanks, Jawan, for having me.
Cherie, thank you. Tell us a little bit about KidSafe Foundation and what it does.
Uh, KidSafe has been around since 2009 as a local nonprofit, and we've been serving Broward County and Palm Beach County since then. We have had the opportunity to educate over, I think it's 50,000 children at this point over the years in their classrooms, in the schools with the KidSafe Foundation education curriculum. We are a primary prevention education program, meaning we start in kindergarten, we teach up to grade 5, and our goal is to instill protective skills and personal safety skills to children from a very, very young age so that we can strengthen children, strengthen schools, strengthen families, and build resiliency. And we also have a whole slew of adult education, training parents, talking to parents about how to talk to their kids in an empowering way to educate them about their personal safety.
And for those parents, Cherie, that are watching this tonight, how important is it that we start off early with educating our kids?
It is dire. That is what we need to do. It is never too late to start the conversation, but it's best to start as soon as they are talking and walking. And you start with basic things like teaching them the proper names for their body parts, teaching them how to care for themselves. And these basic skills begin to turn into feelings of independence and self-reliance. And that's how we build a safer family and safer community. And then, of course, we teach the parents how to keep their children safe and how to understand just what Aytia said about who are the people we should be worried about.
Yes.
The people we know and trust. 90% of the time, children are harmed by the people we know and trust.
Can you give us an example of how to, or some things we should be as parents talking to our kids when it comes to human trafficking?
Sure. So for K through 5 age, which is basically 5-year-olds to 11, 12-year-olds, we don't talk directly about human trafficking in the way that adults are thinking about human trafficking. For them, we're talking about personal safety. We're talking about how a healthy relationship that you feel is good and okay can turn into an unhealthy relationship. And we need to have those conversations with children regarding online and in person. So that's where it starts. But by 6th grade, because of a wonderful law that we have in Florida, and we should be very proud, Florida is the first state in the nation to require K through 12th grade to have child trafficking prevention education. which means that these children starting in 6th grade are going to get direct information about all types of child trafficking. And that will be at school, but it's also wonderful if those conversations can happen at home. And starting to talk about how we treat people and how people mistreat people is just the basics. But that's the kind of conversations we need to have with our children.
And Cherie, do you believe that we have enough organizations like KidSafe? Do you believe there needs to be more organizations out there in order to reduce and prevent human trafficking, especially involving children?
There are not enough organizations. There's so many aspects and variabilities. We need organizations who are going after the people who are harming the children. We need to go after the people who are buying the children. There's a lot of different positions in this. We're at KidSafe Foundation, we're what we call primary prevention. We're teaching them skills. And right now we've launched our new free curriculum to all public schools across Florida to provide them with a wonderful ease of use curriculum called Stay KidSafe. And you can get it online. You guys can go right now, learn.kidsafefoundation.org. And the idea is that we need to get this into the hands of the public so that parents can have these conversations. Learn, there's a dot in that, kidsafefoundation.org. But the idea is that these conversations have to start young. We have to start with personal safety, and then we work our way up into child trafficking. And we have to talk about this on an ongoing basis. It's not a one-time conversation.
Very well said. And I want to ask you lastly, what made you partner up with our next guest? And we're about to see her here shortly. And that's Christina Zorich and the team behind the new film, the documentary that we're about to talk about here shortly. And that is the new Abolitionist documentary.
Yeah, we were introduced by a mutual friend, and and when I saw the documentary, I was so moved. It is so upsetting, but important and empowering. The message is, this is what's happening. This is what you can do about it. Let's talk about this. Let's continue the dialogue. And it was very, very powerful documentary, and I recommend everyone see it. But the driving factor is that what's going on overseas is also happening here. It might look a little different. It might be a little bit more under the radar here, but it's so similar. And the more we learn, the better we can prevent.
Amen, because it's all about education. I always say that on this show. It's all about education, because the more we learn, the better, we are to act against certain things, especially when it comes to our kids. So it's important that us as parents that we take the lead on this, because of course our kids don't know. They're so young, so it's important that we educate them.
And our philosophy is that you educate from a place of empowerment, not fear. And that's an important piece, is why we ask people to come and utilize our resources, because we all learn from a place of fear. Don't talk to strangers and all this scary stuff. And what the white van that Aytia mentioned.
Yes,
that's not helpful. That doesn't teach skills. That makes people scared and not resilient in the world. So we want to teach from a place of empowerment, not fear. So that's our philosophy.
Very well said. Cherie, Benjoseph, thank you so much. And the KidSafe organization, we wish you the best. And I'm definitely taking something away from this conversation tonight as a parent myself.
Thank you, Jawan.
You got it. Well, moving on now to, we just talked about it, the Fort Lauderdale International Film Festival showcased documentaries Monday and Tuesday. And the featured was the new documentary. It's called The New Abolitionist by Christina Zorich. The documentary tackled, as we just mentioned, the issues surrounding child and human trafficking. So here with us now to talk more and discuss more about this documentary. She's a little under the weather, but she's here to join us here this evening. Please welcome Christina to the show. Christina, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you. Yeah, I'm struggling with a sinus thingy, but knock on wood, I'll be fine.
Knock on wood. And we wish you nothing but the best, Christina. Well, tell us about your documentary and how you came up with this particular documentary addressing and tackling human trafficking.
Well, I had a kind of life-altering experience. I met an anti-trafficker in 2012 at a party in Hollywood. I was teaching acting, and one of my students had a party, and she had been a nurse in a hospital in Northern California, and children and women were coming in who had been trafficked. And I didn't understand what that meant. I thought I was educated, sophisticated. How could this be happening? What does it look like? I was like, time literally slowed down when I met her. She told me a story, well, a bunch of horrific stories, but, and I just wanted to help her. So I said, how can I be of service? I knew people, directors and cinematographers who I could send to her to basically film footage of what they do to help fundraise and raise money for their organization, because that's what they need. They need their mission is to build homes for rescued children and women to rehabilitate them after being trafficked. So I sent her a bunch of people. She had a whole day of meetings. She came back to me and she said, Christina, they all, need to be paid. And I had told them going in not to ask for money, but they did. And I understand why. And that was the moment when I got the idea, wow, this would make a great documentary. And that was it. Nothing happened. She looked at me and I looked at her. I said, I feel like we're supposed to do something, work together. Yeah. Nothing happened. Years passed. I sold some property, was going to do a play and produce it with my mom. And I just spent a lot of time praying about it and just decided, the world might not need this as much as that idea I had before. And that's what led me to start moving into making the project.
And for a lot of people that may not know who you are, they see Christina Zorich, but they don't understand that your mother is the late, great Olympia Dukakis. And a lot of people don't realize that. And if you follow movies, your mother is legendary. And I know she's very proud of you for doing this documentary, and I'm sure she is. And again, our condolences to you for the loss of your mother this year.
Thank you.
You got it. You got it. And tackling something like this is not easy, human trafficking. What did you learn from it?
Wow, it totally changed me as a person. The reason this criminal industry is number 2 globally is because we're not confronting it. We're dealing with the victims, and we finally got a law in this country in 2000, our first anti-trafficking law, but we're not dealing with the source. We're not confronting the criminal industry, and that's daunting. But that's where I'm at right now. I mean, I followed 4 anti-trafficking groups in Southeast Asia that rescue, restore, do prosecution work, and do preventative work, because I wanted to learn, what is this issue? I can't believe this is happening. And I learned a tremendous amount from everyone we followed, the 4 groups. And the thing that's fascinating about trafficking is it morphs to the culture it's in. It's affected by the societal norms. So in Southeast Asia, it might be more out front, but here it's hidden. And when I got back and finished, I've been doing the festival circuit with the movie. We've gone to these local towns and cities, and every city or town has an anti-trafficking group. And at the talkbacks, people are like, oh, it's horrible, it's happening over there. And then the people sitting with me say, no, it's happening here. It's happening here. Yeah. I think there's a lot of denial. It's scary. We don't think this is who we are. It's frustrating. I think that, as Cherie said, we have to attack this from different areas. We have to deal with the criminal industry. I'm also right now involved in a doc series that would be about this subject matter. I met someone on the festival circuit who wants to produce me as hosting it. And I just spent 2 weekends ago, I did 10 interviews in a row with people in the middle of the country. It's shocking what's going on. Interviewing some survivors, and one survivor was trafficked out of a room on top of a Shell station in Montana. She said there were women from all over the globe. I shouldn't get into more details because it probably will create a salacious response, but it's happening in this country and it's unacceptable.
But Christina, let's go to the root of why it's happening? Why is it happening in this country? Why is it that it's happening in Asia, which happens to be basically that we talked about our country, we talked about Florida and everything else, but Asian is pretty much, that is the center point of where this is happening. Why? Why do you believe that this is happening? Is it just money that is causing this to happen?
I would
What
have
did you
these.
find out?
I would have these conversations with my mother. Well, the movie was made for this purpose, because my mind was like, how can this be happening? What is it? Why? What does it look like? And how do we attack it? But there's a few things. First of all, when families or children are at risk, when there's no education, when there is poverty, when there's generational abuse, there is that's like rife fodder for this to happen. But then it can happen to people who come from money and privilege. But I think it's more a chance for somebody in an at-risk community. And in Southeast Asia, in terms of the reason I learned it happened there is the war-torn nature of that region.
Yeah.
Because of the conflict between communism and democracy through the 50s, 60s, and 70s, which affected that whole Southeast Asian area. And each country became vulnerable in different ways, some more than others. Some got hit worse. But here, it's just, we now have a global criminal industry. And it's, it's not, my mother would say, well, this has happened before in history. This is not new. The abuses and using of children in this way. We obviously know about the transatlantic slave trade, but she said to me, you know what, maybe it's gone underground and now it's found a new face. Unfortunately, I think that's what we're dealing with. And until that criminal element is pushed back, and there's enough people in this country who care about this issue and don't go into denial, don't get scared or overwhelmed. For me, when I got more involved in researching it, the first reaction is very emotional, and you get very upset and trauma. It's called secondary trauma, finding out about this information. But once you calm down and you start thinking about it, you can actually, I think, attack it better. And, there's people, I think everyone has a part to play in this. There was a man who walks for human trafficking causes. I just had a phone call with him today. He came to the movie, and he just does it to raise awareness. And he told me that he got a call from a woman who had been trafficked, and she said, "Thank you. You're giving me hope. You're making us feel like we're seen and that you're standing with us." So I think we all have to figure out how we can be a part of solving this and fixing it and stopping it. Because it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable.
Amen, Christina. And how can folks watch this documentary? Because now you're talking about it, and of course it's at the film festivals. How can they check it out?
Well, you do the festival circuit and you get hopefully a deal. We've got 2 offers for distribution, sales. So that's in our future. But please follow us on the new Abolitionist DOC.com. And we'll give you updates about what's happening next, because we're just finishing out the film festival circuit.
All right. Christina, thank you so much. Thank you for doing this film. You're definitely touching a lot of lives and hopefully saving them at the same time. We really appreciate you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You got it, Christina. Feel better, by the way. Feel better.
Thanks.
You got it. And you can rewatch this episode on our Facebook and YouTube pages Saturday morning at 9:30 a.m. We want to thank you so much for joining us for this very important conversation on human trafficking. I hope you learned something from this tonight. Be sure to follow me on Instagram and Facebook. I'm at Jawan NBC6. And you can also message us on social media if you have a story idea. And you heard it there in the conversation. You heard it from Cherie. You heard it from Christina, Aytia. It's all about education. It's the key to success. If you believe, you will succeed. We'll see you next time. Have a great week.